Hello and welcome to my complete course on how to build a model-driven Power App. This is the amount of information I would normally cover in a full day of training, so you are getting enormous value watching this for free on YouTube. There are some supplementary materials. If you'd like, follow the links in the description here if you'd like to get those. I am going to show you how to build a model-driven app end-to-end. Our scenario here is building out an app that can manage a recruitment process. If you've watched my previous full course on model-driven apps, this is a whole different scenario with some different components I didn't cover there, all fully updated. So you'll find additional learning here and additional skills to practice. If you're new, if you haven't come across my tutorials or my other course before, welcome. I'm very glad you found me. Either way, if you find this valuable, and I really hope you do, because you're going to learn how to build an app end to end here, please give this video a like. That's the thing that really helps it reach the most people, and I would really like to help more people learn about how to work with model-driven Power Apps and how to build them. And if you feel so inclined, please give it a share among your community of people who you think might also benefit from this. So let's get started with a demonstration here of what the app is that we're going to build and why would you choose a model-driven app in the first place. So here's my opening welcome screen. What we've got here is an application that can manage a recruitment process from end to end. I've got a number of things on the screen here which we'll come back to. This is a custom screen that we can put together just to give it a bit of a pretty front face. Although I'm not actually winning any design awards here. But we have a navigation menu down the left-hand side that navigates you through all of the different tables in the app. And so a core concept of what we're doing with model-driven apps is actually building out something that is a database of some kind with tables and different table relationships in it. The app we're building out here is relatively straightforward with just 3 tables, but the concept here is that you can build this out to be an enterprise-wide application. You can use this to build mission-critical applications. It's something where back in the day people might have used Access as a database to do something like this. This is way more sophisticated. Maybe people are building apps using SQL tables, those kinds of things as well. So this is a complete system that allows you to build out your data model with no code. You do not have to be an expert in databases to be able to do this, and the front-end user interface that goes on it, all in one thing. Now, this is a premium capability within the Power Apps platform. You will need every user to have a premium license. So you've got to be thinking about use cases here that actually have high value in managing an end-to-end business process and where your data needs to be stored in a secure, scalable way. You're looking at applications here where you might have thousands, tens of thousands of rows, dozens, hundreds of tables with different relationships, automated processes, needing to be able to have different security roles to give different users in your organization access to what they can do in the app. Think about things like CRM applications or customer service applications, things that you might use to manage a whole permit application process, a grants management process, or for instance here, a human resources process. These are big applications, substantial applications with a lot of security, data and process in them. If that's the way you're thinking, you're in the right place for model-driven apps. So what we're doing here is managing a list of active roles of jobs that we're recruiting for. So we've got these roles in the application. We've also got a database of contacts in here. All the details are fake. These are not real people, not giving away anyone's real information. All of these people who have applied for jobs or put in applications of some kind. And then we've also got applications in here. If I go into one of these, you'll see that there's relationships going on between these tables. So an application here is an application for a role, and that, if I click through, will open up. Let's do that. That opens up the actual role. And from the role, I can see any related applications. This is a one-to-many relationship. One role can have many applications associated with it. The application also has a candidate, and if I click through to the candidate, here is my person who's applied for the role, and we've got all of their details there, and we can navigate back again. We've also got here a business process flow across the top, which is guiding you end to end through the different steps and stages that have to happen. We're going to go through screening, interviews, reference checks, right through to making an offer. So we've got 3 tables here. one contact, one person could apply for many roles. A role is going to have many applications, and the application is the part where we're going to manage that end-to-end process all the way through. We've also got a Copilot on the side because it's 2024 and it's Microsoft, so of course we've got a Copilot on the side that's going to allow us to ask questions about our data and work through all of those things in natural language, but we will come back to that. All right, what I'm going to do here now is take you through how to build this application from end to end. I am actually recording this video in real time. I'm not even going to pause or stop for any of the spinning wheels because I want you to be able to work through this with me and learn how to build the app. I'll put chapters everywhere here so that you can jump ahead to what you need to do, and then you can pause or go back over things if you like. Don't forget, in the link here there's some extra materials that you might want to get, and give this video a like if you're going to find value in it. Let me show you first what you need in order to sign up to get started with this, which the easiest way to do this is a Power Apps developer plan. Now, if you've already got access at work to a Power Apps environment that has Dataverse in it, you're good, you can skip this chapter, but you might want to watch this just in case. You can build for free and you can learn for free by going to this link here and signing up for a Power Apps developer plan. Now, this is very easy. All you need to do is click on the Start Free button. You're going to pop your email address in there and click Start Free. So let's do that. Agree to the terms and conditions and start free, and that will navigate you through into the Power Apps Maker experience. It takes a couple of seconds. I think it brings up another screen where it might ask for your contact details, which you can just skip over if you don't want to do that. It brings you up into this Maker experience where you have got an environment at the top here that is just for you. This will deploy an environment that has Dataverse in it, which is what you need in order to be able to build out the application. Please make sure that you are sitting in something here that says something like this with your name and not the one that says default. You will not be able to do the whole tutorial if you are in default. Just check that you've got this right. If you're using your work environment, you should have an environment that looks like this. And if you click on tables on the side here, you should be able to see a whole bunch of tables in there. That way you know you've got Dataverse and you're good to go. There is one more thing that we need to do before we get going with everything. Bear with me, it will be worth it. We need to put some settings in place for this environment to make sure that you're going to get some of the really cool new features that just make this app amazing. So what you need to do is go to another tab in your browser, and you're going to go to this website address here, aka.ms/PPAC, which is short for Power Platform Admin Center. You get a lovely welcome message here, and we will just zoom this screen up a little bit more. You're going to click on environments over there on the left hand side. You'll see I've got quite a few things going on here to make this work. Click into the environment that you just created that you're working with, and then click through to settings. And there are two lots of settings we're going to work with here. This is partly around enabling some of the new things with Copilot and also setting up some of the search functionality that I highly recommend you definitely want. So we're going to click through here into product. Firstly, go into behavior, and you're going to set this to the release channel here, says semi-annual channel by default. We're going to choose the monthly channel and click save. I'll just explain that while that's going on. That basically means that for this environment, as Microsoft is releasing new features and pushing things through, you're going to get those updates much sooner. In a real production environment, once you've got this app being used by lots and lots of people in your organization, you might not want to be doing that. But for learning and experimenting, you absolutely, definitely do want to get your hands on those things. So navigate back in that breadcrumb trail. We'll see this type of experience as we go all the way through of being able to navigate along here. And again, click into product, and this time you're going to click on features. And there are two different things we're going to do here. Inside the Copilot features here, this one is you're going to choose allow users to analyze data using an AI-powered chat experience. We want to switch that one to on. That's the thing that will enable the Copilot that we saw earlier inside the application. And you definitely also want to toggle this one on here, Dataverse search. Make sure that that is on. That's going to give you an experience where you can do global search across everything in your app. scroll all the way down. You'll see there's a lot of other features, but that's a whole other world of things that I'm not going to go into right now. And click save on that one. And then once that is saved, you have done all of your settings. See, I told you it wasn't too painful. Oh no, I tell a lie. There is one more. Sorry, we're going to go back in here. There is something else we want to do here, which is set up your auditing, because your app can actually have automatic audit loggings, timestamps of who changed what and when, which is a really useful thing to be able to do. So in audit and logs, we're going to go into audit settings, click on start auditing and save. And now, now you're done with the settings. I'm just going to check my notes here and make sure that we've got this right this time. Features and settings. Yes. Okay. Now we're going to get right into it and start with building out our tables in Dataverse. So you need to navigate back to make.powerapps.com. If you get lost at any point, or if I say return to your solution, this is the site you want to be at, make.powerapps.com. Always make sure that you've got that environment selected at the top here. First thing we're going to do is navigate through to solutions on the side. A solution is basically a bucket, a folder if you like, where you are going to put everything that you build into there so that you can package it up and move it around. So in a real world scenario with model driven apps, remember we're building out things that are really enterprise-wide critical applications here. You would be going through development, user acceptance testing and production, and this is how you can move your application around. Also, while you're building, it just gives you that visibility and clarity of what you're working with, and you'll see as we go through this, all those pieces being built out in that solution. Now that's a lot, but it's actually really easy to do. New solution. You're going to give your solution a name here, which is recruitment. And we're going to select a publisher here. You're just going to, for now, select the CDS default publisher. You can, if you like, I won't do this, it's not important enough for the tutorial we're doing here. You can click new publisher, create one with your name and choose your own prefix if you want to do that. You don't have to, this is good enough for where we need to be right now. And then just click create. Give that a second with the wheel just spinning, and then that will come up on the screen here where now we've got our solution. There's nothing going on. This will look quite different by the time we're finished because I've got my solution here, and down the side here all the different components. At the moment I have no apps, no flows, no tables. That will not be true by the time we're done. We're building here a database on Microsoft Dataverse, and Dataverse is the heart of model-driven apps. If you're building a model-driven app, that is where you're going to be building all of your tables and relationships and structuring out that data relationship. So the first thing we're going to build here is this table around the roles that we're looking to hire for, including all of the different columns that we want on that table. So we've got a roles table that includes what department it's in, who it reports to, what the status of the role is. So let's close that down, come back into the maker experience here, and inside my solution, I'm going to come in here and say I want to create a new table. And then we just need to give it a name. So we're going to call this one, not rows, role. And you'll see it gives it a plural name automatically. You can correct that if it's not quite right. And we also want to select on enable attachments. Now there are some advanced options that we want to enable here as well. So the creating of a table, you can just give it a name and move on, but we are going to check some of these advanced options because we'll pick these things up later as we build out the application. So what we want to do here is click on some of these things. The first one is track changes, which is that auditing capability that we put in before, as well as the audit changes to the data. We want to leverage the quick create form if available. That will make more sense when we come back to it. And we also want it to appear in search results. Make sure you've got those 4 boxes tick and click save. So now what happens is this opens the home navigation, if you like, for this table. So I'm still inside my solution, which is what's going on over here, but now there's a table in here called role. When we come back and finish this, that will up the count to 1. And the table itself has got a bunch of different things. So we've got columns that we can create. So that those are the things like the reports to and the department and the level of the job or whatever else we want to be doing. And then forms and views that allow us to build out the user experience. So let me jump back into my application before. This is a view. A view is a grid or a list of rows. If I go in and open one of these things, this part on the screen here is called a form. This is where we've got that view of a single, I use the word view to explain form, but it's where we've got that it's still the right word. We've got that view that enables us to see all of the specific things about this one particular record in the database. So that allows us here to create forms and views. We're not going to worry about charts and dashboards in this course. We're really going to focus on columns, forms and views, and also relationships between the tables. So these are the core components. So let's start building out the table columns as a starting point. We can click here. What is going on here? You didn't see me do all that, did you? So the thing with Dataverse is that when you create a table, it does all this, what I like to call scaffolding that goes with it. So it's got all of these things in here that are managing the auditing and security, and you do not have to build those yourself. This is what we start to mean by low code and not having to really understand databases in order to be able to do this. If you've got your relationships, a lot of this stuff is done for you. So we just go new table role, and it does all of this: created by, created on, modified by, modified on, who the owner is, which is going to manage the security, which we're going to get to right at the end, around who can read, write, edit, delete the rows in the table, even right down to individual columns on the table. The status, we can have things that are active or inactive. So there's a lot of sophisticated database functionality going on in here that you just didn't have to build. It's just done for you. If you've worked with SQL or something like that, you'd be used to having to build all of this stuff out. You don't have to do that. So we're going to now add the columns that we want to add, and I'm just going to sort of follow along on my notes here to make sure that I get all of the things in the right way. So the first thing that we're going to do is to add a column for the department. So we're managing recruitment across a whole organization here. So we're going to call this one department, and then you can choose what type of data it is. So as we go through this course in these three tables, I've designed it a little bit that you're going to get a decent idea of some of the most commonly used data types, but you've got all of these things here. We can have text, which goes into just a single line of text, through to rich text formatting and special text properties that have things like email and phone number qualities that you can use. We can create numbers, generally speaking for most business applications, whole numbers or decimals, but some other sophisticated things there as well. Dates and times we will certainly be coming back to. Lookups work with seeing the relationships between tables. We'll come back to that. And for now, we are going to create a choice. So a choice is a drop-down list of options where you want to be able to say, we want someone to choose from the sales, marketing, customer service department, not just type in whatever they want. Now, it recommends here that you sync this with a global choice. Usually you would do that. I'm going to do a little bit of a shortcut here to make it a bit simpler. And in the next part, when we create the next table, we are going to come back to this. The thought process here is going to be, am I going to use this choice again? So on my table of roles, I've got a list of the departments. And if I want to use that on another table somewhere in my application, or even if I think I might, you should choose yes here, because then you can reuse it. You won't have to do the work again. And you can also map those values across different tables if you want to do that. I'm going to do that one a little bit later, but for now, I'm just going to choose no, and we'll create the table here. So what we need to do here is put in some options for the choices. Each one has a label, which is the piece that's visible to the user on the front, and a value. This is the technical schema value that sits underneath. You don't need to do anything with that. Just know that it's there. It's got like a unique technical value, schema value sitting underneath that. Sometimes that gets used in some of the automations and things that we're going to look at later, but just leave that as it is. So go through and do these choices. And if you're following along, do the same choices that I'm using here, because if you grab the spreadsheets that I've put in the GitHub repo that's linked in the description, I've given you some spreadsheets that you'll be able to use to import data later, which makes your app look much better. If you use the same values that I'm using here, you'll find that process a whole lot easier. Sales, marketing, now I've got to get it right myself, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble when we get to that point. Sales, marketing, finance, operations, and customer service. And you'll see here that you can move things up and down. We can choose colors. We are going to come back to that. I'm not going to do that here. But if you like to choose colors, by all means, that won't affect anything else later. It'll just make your app more colorful. So go ahead and do that if you feel so inclined. All right, we're going to click save. So we've just set up our first column. There's a lot of talk there, but there wasn't a whole lot of work. So in the role table, we've selected, created a new column, and it's just popped up in there, which is the department. Now you'll notice I didn't put in a column for the role name, which is like sales manager, account manager, or whatever, because the other thing that the system has already done for me is given me a primary name. The primary name is something that you want to use wisely. That's the thing that's essentially your heading. It's like the title of the record or the row. So that, in this case, the name of the job role, you might want to use it including an ID number. We'll have a look at that as we go through and the implications of that. But that's where the name is there, so I don't have to do that. So I've got the name and the department. I'm now going to create another choice column, which is the role status. Now, if you want to put in a status for something in your application, which is what I'm doing here, my role status is that the role is either opened or filled. It's a good idea to not just call it status, because out of the box, I'll just cancel out of that for a second here. Yes, I want to close that. You'll see that there's already a status field in there. That's the one that's used to make a record active or inactive. Inactive is like a soft delete. So you don't want to try not to name it the same as something that's out of the box. It's just going to cause confusion later. So this one is actually the role status, which is my particular way of putting the status in. That's not the way the system status works. You can put descriptions in here about your intent of how to use these. It helps if other people are collaborating with you on building the app, or if you come back into it later. So this one is also a choice. And this time I am also going to say that we don't want to sync this with anything else. And I'm going to change my options here. Let's just close that down into open and filled. Now, this time I am going to choose a color. I would highly recommend here that you choose colors that are pastel light colors, because what happens when we see them in the application in the end, if I go back to it here in the roles, you will see that it shows up in the application in the view over the top of the words. And if you choose something that's really very bright, it gets a little bit harder to read. So you'll see I'm picking similar colors here, also going with something that should be good for accessibility by not using red and green together. So we're going to go with a bit of an amber color in there for filled. There we go. And then I can just click save. You'll notice there was a default choice you could choose. So if you wanted to say every time a role is added, the default is that it's open, you could set that there. That would make some sense. So that's something else that you can do. All right, we're going to put in another column here, and this is going to be the first of our lookups or relationships that we've got happening in here. So I'm going to put in a column called reports to. Now this is going to look up to the hiring manager, and the concept of a lookup here is that it's like a little magnifying glass. Again, let me bring this one up and show it to you in the application. If I come in here and say, here's my account manager role, the reports to, this is the lookup behavior here. It's like a little magnifying glass, and this allows me to search for and find other people in the system or other records in the system. In this case, what we're going to do is use the Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. This is actually, because it's a Microsoft thing, it's actually connected to your Microsoft 365, all of the users that are in there, in that whole thing that's called Entra ID, which is what manages all of your users in there. So let's just close this. So what we want to do is create this column that's called a lookup column, which does that type of behavior. And we are going to look up to a related table. Now you can, if you want, use the contact table in here. You could look up to, you can do this however you want. If you wanted to create a custom table for managers or something. In this scenario though, in a real world scenario, you're most likely to do this. This would actually connect to that person's record in Entra ID. And then if you wanted to be sending notification emails, updates and things like that, it's actually got all of that detail that's in your Azure Active Directory, Entra ID, with their email and contact details and reporting hierarchy. So it can tap into all of those things. So it's a really useful thing that you can do in there, and I don't have to build that table out. Now, in creating that lookup, that's also created a relationship between the two tables. We'll come back to that shortly, and you'll see that it's also going to be putting that into my solution. So you'll see here I've got two tables in my solution now, because by creating that lookup, it's actually brought it into the solution. Let's go and have a look now at the rest of what's going on. So if I go back in navigation menu, this is how we do this. When we talk about the breadcrumb trail there, we're going to go back into the role. We're going to create forms and views, but let's have a look at the relationships that are there. And again, wait, what? We didn't create all of those things. This is that same stuff that happens when we build a table, is that when we enable the table to say that we want it to have activities associated with it, you get a whole lot of other things in there. We'll see that shortly. But even without that, we've got a whole lot of things in here that are relationships to the user table in the system. So all of the logged in users, because that'll allow us to track who created it, who modified it, who the owner is. Do you start to see why this is not the same as building something in Excel or even SharePoint? This is very rich in its security and auditing and tracking capability. And we're going to be able to control right down to the last column who can do what with what. So this is part of what you're getting when you're paying that premium to work with a Dataverse database application rather than putting things in spreadsheets and SharePoint lists. So let's go back. Actually, I didn't show you the thing I came here to show you. Let's go back into the relationships. So we've got created by, modified by, all of these things, but we should be able to see here's reports to, and this is a relationship, a many-to-one relationship with the Microsoft Entra ID. So there's a core concept of database relationships here, one-to-many, or many-to-one. They're actually the same thing depending on which table has the perspective on the situation. So this one is set up in that there are going to be many roles that can be pointing to one reporting manager, because a manager could have many roles reporting to it. So that's that idea back and forth. You can also create many-to-many relationships. That's a whole other can of worms that we're not going to get into here. So we're going to focus on the one-to-many and the many-to-one for this course. So let's navigate back to the role. And now what we're going to do is build out those forms and views, those experiences that are now the user interface experiences that sit over the top of this. So the first thing we're going to do here is click on Edit to create a view. And this is a little bit of a shortcut that can help you with sort of putting all of the things that you've just created in there at once. So I'm going to click here to see all of the columns, and you'll see there's a lot of those. I don't want to call them junk columns because they're highly valuable, but from a front-end user point of view, we don't need to see all of that stuff. So let's select all to unselect all of them. And then what we want to put in here is just the things we want to be able to see in the application. So the name, the title of the job. We are also going to not check on role. This one here is actually an ID column that will give you the sort of unique ID, which we don't necessarily want to do in there. So we're going to put in just the name, and then we'll scroll down to, we also want the department, the owner, who it reports to, and the role status. So those are all of the things that we clicked on in there. Lovely. And then if we go back into here, what we get is an option that shortcuts things a little bit with putting them on the forms and views, which is this thing here that's called Update Forms and Views. Now you might get them pre-populated in there if they're not already, which is what I've got here. Just drop down, and the ones we've just selected there are all there. So we can now just click Select All, click kind of back into this part to apply that, and then we're going to click Update. And what that's done is put those things on the form and the views. I'll show you what that means, and then when we do the next table, we're going to do it the manual way, just so that you know what you can do if you want to be able to do that stuff yourself. Okay, this is an error I haven't seen before, but I did say I was going to do this in real time, including all of the errors. It just says doing the update button is going to work again. There we go, all good. Just read what's on the screen. Sometimes you get those little glitchy things. So that's all done. So if I go into my form here, and let's have a look at the form that's called main. I'll come back to that in a moment, what those things mean. This is this display. So let me show you the final experience of where we're going with this. So this is where I look at the role. We're going to build out the bottom part a little bit later, so we're just doing the top part at the moment, where I've got the name, owner, department, reports to, and role status. So that should come up here. Here we go, name, owner, department, reports to, role status. You can drag these things up and down. We're going to do a proper form design in the next section, so don't worry about that too much now. These different types of forms, the main form is that one that This is the main form. There are other things here with quick views and cards, which we will have a little bit of a look at the quick view later, but the card, we're not going to worry about that. That's not used so much. The other thing that we've got here is the views. And so this has updated a bunch of views, in particular the active roles view. So again, let's just go in and have a look at where we're headed with that. So if we come back here, this is our active roles view, which gives us the columns that we've got in here. So if I close that down again, we'll give this a second to load up. You'll see that we've got those in there as well. So we've got name, created on, department, owner, reports to, role status, and we can change those things around if we want to. Let's make one change here so you can see how this works. If I want to take this one and move it around, I can just grab that and drag it across to the end. So I've changed the order of things there. And then we've got options at the top here. I'm going to click Save and Publish. So we've got two concepts going on all the way through here. The first one is that we save changes. Publishing kind of pushes them through to be live. At this stage, that's a little bit meaningless because we haven't actually published an app yet, but I've just kind of got into the habit. You could just click save at that point, but I've just got into the habit of save and publish. It's the way that you're most likely to do it as you start building things out. Now we can also create filtered views. This is a view of all of the active roles, like all of the things that we've got in progress at the moment. And active in this state means this idea, again, let me go back to the application here, that they're actually not necessarily like they are still filled, but we haven't deactivated them. So let's say I take something like this one here. The system actually allows you to, this is out of the box stuff, to say I want to deactivate a certain role. And then that means that that one is now sort of, it's almost like you hiding it away in your archive. It's like an archive type functionality. It's not deleted, but it's also sort of off the main part of things and filtered out of a lot of things. You can automate that process as well if you want. So this notion of active is all of the things we still want to see in front of us. But let's say you wanted to be able to filter this. So for instance, I only want to see all of the open roles. I don't want to see those ones that have got the filled status in there. So we can do that here. So what we're going to do is say, let's do a save as and call this one open roles. If I can type and click save. And then what we're going to do is put that filter on it, because that is basically a view. And this is a very Excel-like concept now, that we're going to filter by the role status. So we can click on that. I am going to filter by equals. And you can see you've got a whole bunch of other things you can play around with here as well. We want it to be equals open. Once you've done that, you just have to sort of click, just sort of back outside there and then click apply. And now we've got that. Now, I've got no data in my system or in my app yet at the moment. If you've got data in your app and you're fiddling with things later, you'll actually see preview of things here that helps you validate and see what you're doing. But for now, we've just got a blank database. Save and publish that one as well. So now I've created two, these are called system views, and I can choose who in the application has permission to use which views. We'll see a little bit later, the user can sort of set up their own views as they're using the application, but that creates that experience in the app where we can switch back and forth here between active roles and open roles. And as you're designing out your application, you want to think about what views you want to be able to use. We are actually, when we create this custom page, also going to use this open roles view on the front screen there. When we come back to it, we'll give that a second to load up. The speed of this is not indicative of what you might experience in a real scenario. I'm in a developer environment. Developer environments don't get the fastest speed on things. Plus, I'm running my video editing software over the top of running this with my window open, with my instructions on the side. So I've got a lot of things going on here. The video editing software does, video recording software does tend to sort of slow the pace down a bit. So all good. So now we want to come back and use this navigation here to navigate back, and we have got our roles and we're going to navigate back into the role table. So the next thing we're going to do here is set up which columns we want to enable for search. So this actually impacts a couple of things. Let's take a look back in the app again here. The Copilot search, if we want to be able to do things in here. So for instance, we can say things like how many roles are filled, and it will actually be able to find that because we've got that data in the system. And there's also a search at the top here that allows you to search for things and find things in the system, including using fuzzy logic. So let's say I wanted to search for an account manager and I didn't spell it correctly. I can type in account and then it will actually find those things. So you don't want everything in the database to be indexed for the search because that affects the performance of all of the things, plus you'll get irrelevant search results. So you actually have control over what you put into the search. So that's what we're going to do here. So the way that you find and set up your search is to go back into your views, and you want to work with the view that's called the Quick Find Active View. So what this does is sets up the sort of the results screen from the sort of an old school search experience that we're actually not using much anymore. But you'll see here that you've actually got the edit find table columns, and this allows you to choose which columns you want enabled for that search. So I don't necessarily, like, we might want created on because that's, you know, we want to search for when things were created. I want my department in there, the name, what else do I want? The reports to and the role status, and click apply, and that's all done. And again, save and publish when that's finished. So from there, we'll wait for that to happen. We're going to navigate back into the solution. You've created your first table. I've given you a lot of other explanations around Dataverse and relationships and auditing and security and things in there as well. So we're going to pick up the pace a little bit now and create another table with a little bit less explanation. So hopefully that's all been useful. Again, please give this video a like if you're getting something out of it, and help me to get it out to more people to share the love and skill of building model-driven apps. So what we want to do now is go back up the breadcrumb trail a step further into tables here. And what we're going to do is create a table that is for the application. So that thing where we're saying, here's an application, someone submitted an application, and it's going to have relationships to the role and also to the contacts, which are the people who are applying. Now, I haven't created the contacts table yet, have I? You'll see what happens here. We've actually got, let me show you, if I go, I'm going to just navigate back out of all of this into the main area here and go into tables. Dataverse actually comes with a stack of out-of-the-box tables for things you might use commonly. We've got account, contact, a whole lot of other things in there as well. So the contact table is already in here because almost every application you're going to have people or organizations of some kind. So unless there's a good reason not to, the core people that you're working with in the application or the organizations you're working with in the application, there is a whole lot of stuff in here already, hundreds of different columns. You don't have to use all of these, but like all of this work is done for you. You don't need to create it yourself. So for the people who are going to be applying for the jobs, I'm going to use that contact table. Now to get back to where I was, solutions, recruitment, and this is now the top level of my solution. So I'm going to create a new table, and this one is going to be called application, plural name applications. I want to enable attachments, and we're also going to go in here and have a look at some of these advanced options again. And I'm going to choose the same ones plus another one that we did before. So we want to track changes, audit changes to the data, leverage the quick create form if available. We also want this one to appear in search results, which we did before, and I don't think we did this one before. We want this one to be available when we're creating a new activity. That is going to enable a whole lot of other out-of-the-box things, which I'll show you in a moment. There's a lot that comes with this that's just there for you, like all of these common things that we don't have to set up. Clicking that little box is going to set up a timeline and the ability to have emails, phone calls, tasks, notes, all of that stuff, just with a one little checkbox there. So make sure you've got that one. That's really cool. And then we're going to click save. And so now what we're going to do is create the columns that we want on the application table. So I can go into columns, which is what I did before. If you prefer, you can go new column from there, same. So what we want to do here is actually, sorry, we're going to cancel out of that. I'm going to go back into this thing because we're going to make a change to an existing column. So remember I was telling you earlier that the primary name column is like your heading. So if I go back into my application for the role, this makes a whole lot of sense because this is the main thing you click through. See how it's like the heading here? If you do any kind of lookup, if I'm on an application and I want to look up that relationship to the account manager, to the role, the thing that you're going to see there is that primary name column. So you need to be careful about what you're doing with that. Now, for a job role or a person, for the person, it's the full name by default. For the role, the name of the role makes enormous sense. But for an application, it still has to have a header, a title of some kind, this primary name of some kind. And you don't necessarily want it to be populating with things like you could have it being account manager application for Maria Rodriguez or whatever it is. But honestly, having some kind of reference number here, and this is an auto number, makes more sense. Plus, I wanted to show you how to do the auto number because it's a good thing to know how to do. So what we're going to do here, you can't get rid of the primary name column, you have to have one, but here are the flexible options you've got with it. So you could change what it's called. So this one is called name. I'm going to change it to be called application number, or you could call it application reference or something if you wanted to. The data type, I don't have all the options here. It has to either be just a single line of plain text, but I do have another option here to say I want this to be an auto number. And you'll see that some new things pop up on the screen when that happens. So it's going to be either a date prefix number or a string prefix number. I'm going to go with the string prefix number. My prefix is going to be APP, and then I want 4 digits, and you can make that more or less if you want, and the value is 1000. So let's say I wanted this to be 3 digits. You'll see that you get the preview if you change it in there, but I'm going to say I want a minimum of 4 and I want to start from there, but you can play around with those options and have it do what you want. The other thing you want to do here, if you're doing an auto number, is change this so that it's not business required. Business required makes it a mandatory field. It means that if you create an application, you won't be able to actually create it until that's filled in, because its data validation rules are enabled in that option to say something's business required. So any of the columns you're creating, you want to put in business required if it's mandatory, if you actually want to do that, whereas business recommended or optional, you won't have to put it in. And that also means that when the record is saved, that will do the auto number in the background. So if you're doing this auto number, make sure you change that value as well. And then we're going to click save in there. We are now going to add some date columns here because the application process comes with a bunch of dates of things that we're tracking, that end-to-end process of what's happening. So I'm going to create a column here called screening call date, the first time we call up and sort of check if the person's in the right zone for the role. So that is going to be a date and time column. And I don't necessarily need a timestamp on that. I just want to know what date it happened. So I can choose that the format will just be a date only and click save. We're also going to put in an interview start time and end time. You may not need the end time, but I want to show you cool things. So we're going to put in interview start time. This one is also going to be a date and time. And I do want a date and time because for an interview, I want to know what time they're coming in for the interview. That's actually kind of important. So let's click save there. And then I'm going to put in the interview end time, mostly because I want to show you that you can put in formula columns here. So if you are familiar with PowerFX, good luck to you because you've got some skills here that you're going to use again. If you're not, don't panic, it's all good. So this is also a date and time. So we could leave that blank, but in fact, instead of making it a date and time column, I'm going to come down here and say this is a formula column. And the formula, the format of the formula is going to be, actually, no, sorry, we're not going to do that yet. We're going to put the formula in first and then come back to it. So the way we're going to do this, I'm going to type it out to show you. And this is where with PowerFX, you need to just be learning PowerFX. Honestly, things like Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT are very good for looking up formulas, heaps of community things around. But if you want to add something to a date, and if you know Excel, you'll get a bit of a leg up here. It's not exactly the same as Excel, but as you start typing things, you'll find things in here. So the thing that I want is called date add. Now, even if I didn't know that, I've put in data. Even if I put in date, you'll start to see options. You could calculate the difference between dates, or we're going to add dates to something. So we're going to go date add, open your parentheses there to get some more clues. So you can see here's my formula, the date and the number of units. So we are going to start with the interview start time, comma, and now the number of units, I'm going to put in 60 minutes. So I'm going to put in 60, comma, and then if I start typing in minutes, you'll see that we've got time unit minutes, And that's it. I'll leave that on the screen there a second so that you can copy that. But you'll see as you start to type these things out, the formula has quite a lot of built-in help to make it easy for you to get to that result. And you'll see there I tried to do the format before, but I didn't need to. Format, date and time. Excellent. And now we can just click save. We are now going to do a global choice for something that we're going to use more than once in the application. So we're going to come in here now and choose a column called interview outcome. So this is going to be, did we succeed or not with the interview? But we're also going to use this choice somewhere else when we do reference checks. So this one is going to be a choice, and I'm going to stick with the yes recommended for the global choice here. So we need to choose a new choice. So you need to set up the choice, and then you need to put that global choice into this particular choice column. So this choice is going to be called outcome because we're going to use this for reference checks as well as interviews. So the labels here, we are going to call this one, what have we got here? This is going to be successful. And another new choice is unsuccessful. All good. Don't worry about the values, same concept we talked about before. Give this some nice colors again if you want. Remember to choose nice sort of pastel colors so that it becomes easy to see. We're going to kind of go with pink and blue this time because why not? And we'll click save on that. Now remember, we haven't finished. We went, I need a choice column. I want to create a global choice. Now we're going to link those two things up again. So we need to sync this choice. And if you just start typing outcome, you'll see it there. And now we've got those things together and we've got our column created. We're going to go through this again for the next one. You'll see we don't have to do that setting up of the choices every single time if we set it up as a global choice. So what I want to do now is set up something called comments. So we might want to have comments about what's happened with the interview. And this one, instead of a single line of text, I'm going to come into my text field here and choose rich text, which allows us to put some things in there that we can do bold and highlighting and italics and colors and cool things like that. Click through into your advanced options here. Your default maximum character count is 100 characters, which isn't really going to be enough. Let's set that to the maximum of 4,000, and we're going to click on that one to save that one as well. Now we're going to move on. So we're sort of going through the process here of setting up for the application, all of the stuff about an interview. We've got a place to say when the interview was, whether it was successful or not, what the outcome of the interview was, and what the comments were. So now we're going to put in some things around reference checking as well. Just give this a second to catch up with me. Sometimes I can talk for as long as it goes, and sometimes it takes a second. There we go. So now we're going to put in the display name here is going to be reference check required. And this is another different type of data, which is again a type of choice, but it's a special type of choice. It's just a yes or a no. I don't have to set those things up. This you can use for any kind of binary, true, false, yes, no, any of those things. Be aware that this one has to have a default choice. So if you want blank yes or no, you have to do it the way that I just showed you, because you can have a blank option, whereas this is just yes or no. So reference check required, we're going to say the default is that no, it's not. But we'll put in some conditional branching later that says if a certain thing is true, then you want to be able to add that in. So you could put colors in here if you like. I'm just going to keep going with that. And now we want to put in the reference check date and the reference check outcome. So we'll come in here, reference check date. Again, we'll move fairly quickly on this one because we've done this before. That's a date and time. Don't really care about the time, date only. All good. And now the reference check outcome, I can use the same outcome that we had before. Reference check outcome. And this is going to be data type choice. I want to sync it with a global choice, and I don't have to create it anymore because remember I created it before. If I just start to type sync this choice with outcome, if I hover over that, it gives me a little preview, make sure I'm choosing the right one. And we're done. So that's that concept of the global choice. It's a bit confusing the first time you have to click around, but then when you want to come back and use that one again, you saw how easy that was. What else do I need? Whether or not we made an offer, last one. So we're going to say offer made, question mark, and this is going to be a choice, which is a yes or no, and that's done. Whew. All right, so that's quite a lot we've set up on that application table there. What we've also got, if we come into the application table and have a look at the relationships, as I said earlier, because I set up that piece where we wanted to enable it for activities, there's a heap of things here. Look at this regarding email, fax. Does anyone still send faxes? It's still in there. Phone call, task, appointment, recurring appointment, note. So there's a bunch of things in there. We'll have a look at the timeline. You can remove the ones you don't want. But just by clicking that one box, all of those features and relationships have been set up without needing to do anything else. You can't undo that though. So think carefully about whether you want that in there. You can come back and add it later, but you can't undo it. So let's do a little bit more on the relationships here, and I'm going to create relationships. So we've got this application needs to have a relationship with both the applicant, the candidate, and the job. And they are the same thing where you've got one role can have many applications, one person can have many applications, or from the point of view of here, it's a many-to-one relationship. There are two ways that we can create that relationship. I'm going to show you both of them. They will both result in exactly the same thing. I prefer the second one, but if you prefer this one, now this probably depends on whether you come from a database way of thinking or a low-code kind of way of building applications. So I'm going to do it the kind of database way first. So what we're going to do here is come back into this application, and we're going to say I'm going to create a new relationship, and this is a many-to-one relationship, many applications mapping to one role. So we can choose the related table here. You can just actually type it in. Helps if you spell it correctly. Choose the role. Let's just scroll down and find it. Okay, and you'll see that's done a bunch of other things. It's created a lookup column for me with a name and a schema name. It's asking me whether or not it's optional or not, or required, and whether it's searchable, and there's a bunch of other options there, but we're just going to say done. I'm not worrying too much about making things mandatory, but that option to set things as business required is always there as part of what you can design in your application. So that's done. If I come back into my columns now, we will see that on the application table, there is a lookup column to role. Remember how we created a lookup before. So that's one way of doing it. Create the relationship, the lookup is created for you. I'm going to do it for the contact now, but I'm going to do it the other way around. This is how my brain likes to think about it, because it's a little bit easier if you're not used to dealing with the relationships. If I come back into my application here and go into I've gone into my application to look at an application. Into my app. I'll just zoom this up a bit. This role is a lookup. So if you're thinking about it more from that sort of user experience point of view, I'm going to do the candidate this time. So the candidate, I want to, on my application table, add a lookup to a candidate. So we're going to do it that way. New column, candidate, and that is a lookup to which related table, and this is the contact table. I'm using that contact table that is out of the box. Let me try and get that right. Click on the right thing and click save. Now that's going to do a couple of things. That's created the lookup for me, and it's also, if we look over here, did you see that? Rewind a bit if you missed it. That went from 3 to 4 and it added contacts. So it's actually added that into my solution for me because I've grabbed that and pulled it in. That's it. I don't have to actually do anything else with creating the contact table. You can go in and edit the layout of it, add extra pieces you want using all the same skills we've seen here, but I'm not going to do that. We don't need to do that to build the app that we want to do here. And so as a result of that, if I go back to my application table, click on relationships here, you will also see that we have candidate, and that's the same thing we created earlier, but I did it the other way around. So you do you. Next thing we're going to do is to build out those forms and views. So we saw a little bit earlier with the role that we could sort of just grab all of the things and put them on there. But with this one, we actually want a much sort of more sophisticated layout with these things. So let me show you how we put together something that looks like this, where we've got the 3 columns, and we've also got a tab in here for interview to put that information in. So we're going to actually do some design work on the form now. So the first thing we're going to do is go back into the application table, and we're going to set up the view so that we can see the grid of applications. We've got the active applications in there. there already. So because I didn't go through that other process of update forms and views, you can do that if you like. Sometimes I find that easier. Sometimes I prefer to do it this way. What you can do is actually just choose the columns you want from down here and put them on the view. You can drag and drop, but you don't even need to drag and drop. So let's get these in order. If I click them in the order I want, it's really easy. So we're just going to go candidate, interview start time, interview outcome, and offer made. Not bad, hey? And then I don't really want created on, so I can remove that. Job done, save and publish. This is the easiest part, honestly, creating views, and you can drag and drop and move the things around and add the filters and do whatever else you want in there. Change the column widths. I tend not to worry about the widths. It's a responsive application in the end out of the box, so it will usually sort itself out with the column widths. You really don't need to be doing much there. So the other thing I want to do though is sort this in order by the interview start time. So we'll come in here and say, I actually want this one to be older to newer, so that when we're looking at the applications, it's going to be sorted in order so that we see the people who are being interviewed coming up first. As good a way as any. And again, if I've made a change, I can just click save and publish and go back to that. We also need to set up our columns for search again. So we'll go back into here, and remember that is the quick find view where we can do that. Down the bottom here, edit the find table columns, and we want to add a few other things in here. So we've got the application number. Let's also grab the candidate, comments, created on. So this is different from what we see. Interview outcome, start time, offer made, offer made, role, screening call date. That'll do. Now I've just realized that I've made a mistake here because I've got interview start time and interview date time. I think that was the one where it was meant to be interview end time. So let's pretend I did that on purpose to show you how to fix something. We'll do that. Save and publish that one. So it's good if you notice your mistakes before you've gone too much further. We'll just go back and change the display name of that. If I wanted to be really fussy about it, I could delete it and change the schema name and do all of those things, but we'll just make sure that the display name makes sense. So let's come back into the application table here, into our columns, interview date time, Lisa, interview end time, interview end time, and we'll just save that. All good. I haven't actually kind of put it in the application or done anything too much yet, so I've corrected that one before we've gone too much further. Let's create the form now. So if we go back into application and click on forms, this is this nice sort of 3-column layout that we're going to be able to work with. So again, we want to work with the main form. Make sure that you're clicking on the one that's called main form. And we've got a few different concepts here around components, tabs, sections, columns. We'll go through all of the thing here. First thing I want you to do, depending on the size of your screen, at the bottom here, responsive, I want you to choose desktop, because for me that sort of gives the full screen layout of what I want to do. And then depending on what you're working on, you can zoom up or down here to sort of get the detail that you need. Now, if you're familiar with Canvas apps, this is not the same thing. This is not down to the last pixel of what you can do. This is all built with components on the screen. So we can choose different tabs and layouts and columns, but you can't go, oh, I just want to make that box like 1 pixel wider. It's not that kind of design. This is a component driven design. When we get to custom pages at the end, you'll be in your happy world of being able to get down to the last pixel, but this is not the moment for that. What you want to do first is click on the whole form. So you watch as we go, this sort of magenta colored outline shows you where you are. This is me clicking on the whole form. If I click here, I'm clicked on a section. So you'll see it tells me I'm on a section, whereas here I'm on a whole tab. So just watch where you're clicking if you get unexpected results. So the first thing we want to do here is change this whole tab to have 3 columns. So we're going to change the layout here to 3 columns, and then see now I've got 3 sections across the screen. Now what I can do is change the properties of this one here. So this one is called a section. So we click in there and that one is now highlighted. Let's give that one a different name. So instead of calling it general, let's call that one summary. We also need to give it a schema name there, so we'll just call that summary. And see how hide label is checked? Can't see it. Uncheck that. Right, there we go. So now what we want to do is bring some other things in here. So we're going to come over. Now, if I've got this selected, we just drag that and put it where we want it. So I can just drag that and put it in between the application number and the owner, and there's the role in there. Next thing I'm going to do is make the candidate in the middle section. So if you can see what I'm doing here, if I go back to my finished app, see what I've done? Summary, application number, role, owner, candidate. We're going to put that in there. This is very, like what you see is what you get. It's very much the same as you're designing it out. You're really getting a sense of what it looks like. So now what we're going to do here is come in and call this one candidate. That one's already displayed, so I don't need to change it again. What did I do wrong there? No, we just clicked away. So we've got the candidate, and now what I want to do is drag the candidate across. Hot tip for you here, you don't even have to drag if you don't want to put it in a particular position like I just did. With that one highlighted, click on candidate, and it will just pop up in there, which sometimes is a little bit easier than dragging things around. Over in the final section here, we want to add our timeline, which is that control that allows us to bring in all of those notes and things like that. So again, let's go back to the app. This is the timeline control. I can add appointments, emails, phone calls, tasks, and notes. So as the application process is going through, I might say, you know, we made a phone call to the applicant on this date, or a task is to send them a job description or assigning someone else to do the reference check or whatever it is. So all of those things are there. That will natively connect with your Exchange Outlook out of the box because Microsoft. So let's close that. So what we can do here is come in and we want to bring the timeline here. That's a component. So on the side here, this left-hand menu, this is my table columns that I've created. If I click on this little, I don't know, window jigsaw kind of piece, I've got components, which shows me all of the different things that I can drag in. So what I want here is the one called timeline. So let's just take that one across into the section there. And then that's the timeline there. It's got its own nice heading. I don't need this other one. So we're going to click outside of the component into the section and hide that label. And now we've got our 3 columns all set up in there. So the next thing we want to do is clean up the timeline. So depending on how your environment was set up, if you deployed sample apps or there's sample apps and data in there, you might have a bit of a mess here, which is what I've got. So we're going to come into the timeline and you'll see there's a bunch of things in here: appointment, fax, letter. So some of them are already unchecked, fax and letter. So we've got appointment, email, phone call, recurring appointment. Social activity is something that we don't even really use in the system anymore. So if there's anything you don't want, you just check it and unenable those things. Task invite redemption is a portals related thing that we're not working with here. Portal comment, the same, we don't need that in there. Donation is part of a sample app, which we're not using here. It's a fundraising sort of sample application. That's pretty much it. So just clean that up, get rid of the things that you don't want that are sitting in there. And then the next thing we're going to do is to add another tab into the form. So if I come back into my app again, you've got the general tab, which is what we've been working on. And I've also got an interview tab, which is a 2-column tab that has a couple of details about the interview start time and comments with that rich text box. So let's just scroll back over here so we can see what we're doing. If you come back into this components menu, what we want to do is create a 2-column tab. So watch what happens here when I click on that. It's going to pop up with new tab. I click on new tab. Let's give this a name, interview. Oops, give this a name called interview. All right. And then on this section, what we're going to do is call this one details. And I want to bring in the interview start time and the interview outcome here. So if I go back to my table columns on that left-hand navigation menu, and again with this one selected, I can make it easier for myself by just clicking on interview start time, interview outcome. You'll see I fixed up the end time that's coming through correctly now. And then this one, we want to change this label to be comments. And I'm going to find my comments. And again, select where I want it to go, make it easy for yourself, and click on that one in there. So then what we can do here is change the properties of this one a little bit, because I want this nice layout where I've actually got as much space as possible for my comments. So you'll see what I've got here. I've just got comments in the heading, and I don't need the label sitting off to the left as well. That's just annoying. So if I come in here and say hide label, that gives me more space for that. And then you've got the option as well to play around. You get 50-50 with your column widths, but if you wanted to, you could change that to be more or less on the screen. So let's say maybe I want that one to be 30 and this one to be 70. So again, I don't need that much space for the interview start time and the outcome, and I've given myself some more space for the comments. All right, that is form design. So while that's saving and publishing, we've been through there how to create a whole tab, how to create columns on the tab, how to work with sections, naming your sections, bringing those table columns in, moving things around in the layout. You can drag and drop to your heart's content here and sort of make some really nicely designed things. This is where, some people are talking about with model-driven apps, it's like, oh, they're not beautiful. Look, I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder, to be honest. I mean, yes, we're not dragging and dropping every little thing on the screen, but this is such a really nice, just clean, simple interface, and it really took very, very little time to build any of that. We're just going to drop that into this application and it's going to be good to go. What have we got left to do? That's all of our tables now. So we've got our contact table that we've brought in to put the people in. We've got our table to store all of the roles. We've got this application table with the relationships between those things. Let's go back into the solution. The next thing we're going to do is create that business process flow. So this is the process across the top here. And this has actually got some branching logic in it. So what we've got here is a screening call date. So let's say we're coming in here and that was the date of the screening call. We move to the next stage. So we've got screening, interview, and offer. By the way, the Copilot on the side here, if you want to get a bit more screen real estate, you can open or close that. Interview start time, so let's schedule an interview in for next week at maybe not 8 a.m. in the morning, maybe 11 a.m. And then what we can do is say, is a reference check required or not? So there's some decision process perhaps on the level of the job. You could have other automations and rules that help automatically set that. But watch what happens to my business process flow when I choose yes. Did we see that? Pops up with reference check. So it brings up a whole other stage to work with. So we're going to build out this piece now. So to do that, we will go back to our solution, back to the top level of the solution. And from here, we're going to say that we want a new automation, and it's actually a process, business process flow. Now this is going to need a name. So we're going to call this one recruitment process. Oh, let's spell it correctly. You can update that before you've saved it. And this is going to work on the application table. So you can start typing it to find it and put it in there and click create. Please make sure that you have got pop-ups enabled. There's a couple of places in here where it will open a new browser window. So for instance, pop-up blocked, right? If you've got this problem, enable it. Better if you've done that before. So if you do get into that situation, I'll show you what to do. If you've been smart enough and you had your pop-ups enabled before, you'll just go straight through to this part. So we're just going to click done in here. And I am going to need to find my process there. So you give it a second. It's actually sort of initiated it and created it. So give it a second to come up. If I click on that, it will now just open that in the other window. Now there's nothing to say here other than that this is an old part of the user interface. It's slow, it's a bit clunky. I've been hoping for ages that this might get an overhaul, but it is what it is. It functions well, but you're just going to have to kind of roll with the fact that it's not as nice to use as some of the other pieces. So essentially we have stages, which are those dots along the top, the stages of the process, and then steps, which are the pieces that sit underneath that. So we click on the first one here, which is the stage that we've been given. And what we want to do is change the name. So we'll change this to screening. Now this is where you'll get caught out. So you've got to do this every time. This is not how a modern user interface works. And so why we get caught, you need to click this apply button every time you make a change. Enough said. So now what we need to do is open up the details and say underneath the application. So again, I'm just going to go back to the app so you can see what we're doing here. Underneath the one that's called screening, these are the stages. So screening, interview, reference check, offer. Underneath screening, we're going to put in the screening call date. Under interview, we're going to put all these things in. So this is the part that we're building out here. So the data step here, we click here. Don't do the name first. Come in and choose screening call date, because see, it automatically updates that. You are good as long as you do what? Click apply. When I do this stuff in person, there's always a point where someone hasn't clicked apply for something and I do it myself. So hopefully we'll get it right here. So now what we need to do is get the next stage. So this is the properties of that. There's another little option here called components. Let's grab that stage, drag it over to where you can see that button highlighted. That one's highlighted now. So this one is going to be called the interview stage. Apply. And we're going to add a few different data steps into here. So let's open the details of this one, click on the first data step, and we are going to put in the field called reference check required. Apply. Oh, I missed it. I was too busy looking at my notes to see what comes next. We're also going to bring in another component here, stage, and we're going to call this one offer. And apply. And this one will have in it more details. So this one is going to have whether or not there was an offer made, and we'll click apply there. Now I've missed a few things in the interview stage. Let's just come back to this. So we'll come down here. So we had the reference check required. We also want to bring in the interview outcome and the interview start time. So no drama. What we want to do is go back to components and click on data step, or you'll notice if you come over here, no, we can't do it from there. We'll click on components and bring the data step. So there you go. See the little pluses that come up? So I can put things above or below that. So let's put this one above that. That is going to be the interview start time. And then components. I was too busy explaining apply and missed a couple of things here. So interview start time. And then we want the interview outcome. Apply. Okay, so now we're good. So we've got our screening, interview, and offer stages all ready to go. Now the next thing we want to do is to add that conditional branch where we wanted the reference check. Build out your main flow first and then come back and put that conditional branch in there. So what we do is come to the components, grab this condition, and we want to drag that between the interview and offer stages. So you're going to drag it until that little piece is brighter. And now we've got that condition in there. Condition is highlighted. We're going to call the condition reference check. Now, importantly, whatever you want the condition to be branched on needs to be something that sits in the stage before it. So this one, we put in reference check required, yes or no in that one. So now that's available to us. So we can come in here and choose reference check required. And we want to say if reference check required equals yes, then we will get to the next stage. What next stage? I might ask you. It's not there yet. Don't panic. We're going to click apply. You need at this point to save. And when I click save, watch what happens. So saving kind of activates the conditional logic. I did say this was an old user interface, and it is what it is. That will then activate the piece that gives you the branching logic. So now if we come along here, you've got a little sort of diagram there, but we can go along and you'll see that it's put in a new stage of that conditional branching. So this new stage is going to be called, what did we call this one? Reference check. Apply. And then what we want to do is add in the details here. So the data step here is going to be the reference check date. Apply that, components, and drag another data step in here and the reference check outcome, and one final apply for good measure. How did you go? Just double check before you go any further that you've got all the right names of things, that you're not still sitting with something that's called new stage. That's a really easy step to miss. So I'm just going to double check my work here. We've got screening, interview, reference check, offer. All good. Let's save that one. And then what it will do is check that it's all valid. So you'll get like a little sort of validation successful. Lovely. And then the last thing we need to do is activate. You'll get a message here that asks you to confirm. Now, depending on how lucky I am, this is either going to work or not. This is a known issue, so don't panic if this happens to you. This should take about 30 seconds. Hands off keyboards here. I'm going to let this actually happen or not in real time. About 30 seconds later, this should disappear, and then you will see, here we go. Now I've got the thing, I've kind of shown you the error without even meaning to. If this happens, I would suggest clicking wait once. If it happens more than once, don't sit here waiting forever for this. This whole process takes about 30 seconds in the background, but sometimes it's worked, but the message just hasn't cleared properly. So I reckon I'm almost at the point that I'm going to give up on it. Okay, so we're just going to click wait on that. Oh, there we go. We clicked wait. So that worked. What I was going to do then, if it didn't come up, just refresh the screen. You'll know if it's worked. Don't worry too much about the confirmation messages. If this now says deactivate instead of activate, you're good to go. If it still says activate, click it again and do it again, but you should be fine. Now remember, this popped up in a new tab when I had to set my pop-ups, so let's just close that, and it comes back here, currently editing a business process flow, and we just say done and we're ready to go, and you'll see that the process is now sitting as part of your solution. All right, what's next? Now what we want to do, this is a little optional thing just for tidiness and completeness of the solution. This actually creates another related table that you don't really need to know about. But if you want to be able to bring this solution across in a proper real world scenario into a test and development environment, you're going to want to bring that across. Otherwise, you'll have to pick that up later. So what we want to do is to say that we're going to add an existing table, and the table will have the same name as the process that you just created. So if you just type in recruitment process, there we go. There's a table that's there. We just click that, click next, include all objects, which basically means all of the pieces associated with that, whatever they are, let's bring them in, and you'll see there we've got another table. So just be aware then, if you are doing any editing that you want to edit your process, you don't actually need to do anything with the table. We're just bringing that in for completeness of that whole solution. All right, we are done with kind of building out the stuff. Let's hit publish all customizations, and the next thing we're going to do is bring this into a model-driven app. Now the building of the model-driven app is actually really easy because we've built the tables, we've built the business process flow, the forms and the views and all of those components. The model-driven app is actually just bringing all of those things together. So while that's waiting to publish, it can take a minute or so. Let's have a look here. All of the stuff, the other stuff you see in here, the welcome page, we are going to come back to a little bit later in the course here. But all of this other stuff around, let's say I come into the roles here, the fact that we've got a search bar at the top, the parts where we've got all of these different menu items, let's just zoom this up a little bit. So things like, settings, the Copilot in here, all of this, show chart, new, delete, refresh, visualize in Power BI, import from Excel. We're going to use that one in a moment too. You don't have to build any of that. When we go new model-driven app, it does all of that. And then all we do is pull these pieces in. So this is where we've done all this work, but this comes together really, really quickly. The app itself is actually the easiest part of all of this. So let's do this. New app, model-driven app. And we are going to give it a name. Did I go too fast then in my excitement? No, there we go. Okay, we're going to call this one recruitment app and click create. And then what we need to do is to bring basically just the data tables in here. A lot of the other things will just come across at the same time as we do this because they're all associated with each other. So all we need to do is come in here and say we want to add pages. We're going to start by bringing in the Dataverse tables. So let's click next. And we want to bring in the tables application, contact, and roles. So you can search for them or you can just scroll down and find them. So let's go application, contact, that's where we're putting our people, and role. See how many out-of-the-box tables are in here? There's a lot of depth in here if you really want to get into this stuff, and it's cool. There's a lot of complexity and depth that you can pull in here. We want to leave show in navigation because we want those things to be in the navigation, and click add. Do you see what's happened here? This starts to look like the app. All of these things, I didn't build them. They're all just there. So now we've got applications, contacts, and roles, new group. We've got a little bit of tidying up to do. So let's just tidy up the navigation menu here. What you want to do, if I want to reorder things, so let's say I want it roles at the top, this is a little bit clunky, but you just have to come in here and say move up and do this again, move up. And so now it's in the right spot. Let's give this one a different icon. So you'll see what happens. The contacts is an out-of-the-box table. It's got a nice little icon for a person, but roles and applications get these sort of little clipboard generic icons. If you've created a lot of custom tables, that doesn't look so nice in the application. So with roles selected, what we can do over here where it says icon, default icon, drop down and say use a web resource. Now you can actually bring your own icons and things in here. I'm just going to keep this fairly easy and use this with some of the ones that are already here. So you can browse around. There's one here that's called email template high contrast, which looks like, I don't know, something that sort of makes sense to me for a role. So we'll click that, and you won't see it there straight away. Don't panic. It is gonna come in. So now what we're going to do is do the same thing for applications. So let's click on applications. You'll notice this came up with something different on the side here. So to get back to where we were, if you just click settings, you get the same thing. And again, I'm going to use a web resource there, and I'm going to search for one that's called analysis job.svg. There we go. That'll do. So we've brought in two different things there. Once that's published and played, we'll be able to see those come up in the application. It just looks as little things that makes it look a whole lot better. New group. We can't have new group, so let's click over here and give this a name. Let's call this recruitment. So you can actually, if you have an application that has lots of different sections, you can arrange your tables into these sort of sections and subsections and give them different columns. This one isn't a navigation point, it's just a grouping, and you have to have some tables underneath it, but you could have different levels of groups in the navigation menu if you wanted to muck around with that. One more setting we need to fix, and this is something that sometimes can mess up the search bar at the top. Depending on when you're watching this, you may or may not still need to do this, but let's just go through this now. So we're going to go into settings, features, and then wait for this to come up. We'll scroll down. There's one in here that's called Enable Offline Classic. No. And click save. That actually at the moment seems to be stopping the global search bar from working. So for now, if you want to follow along with what I'm doing and get that global search bar working, that's a safe option, just to make sure that that one is switched off. Hopefully that won't always be the case. All right, so we have built the model-driven app. I didn't time how long that took, and honestly, I think I spent more time explaining it to you than doing it. When I'm doing this part, it's like a 5-minute job. So save. We've got 3 stages here. Save, publish, play. We've already published all of the other customizations, all of the tables and things. This actually has brought in all of those views. I will actually just show you that before we hit play. So if you want a choice about what's in here, if I go into roles view, you'll see here, these are the roles that have come in. So active roles, there's always active and inactive out of the box. Open roles is that other one that we created. The roles form is the one that we created, so you can see it there. So if you've built out a whole lot of different forms and views and things, you'll see them here. You'll notice this one looks like it's 3, even though we created it 3 across. That's because this is a fully responsive app. So you'll see at the bottom here it says responsive. If I just choose this to be desktop, that's what we were looking at before. So all of that is ready to go. We already published, so let's play this thing and see what we've got. Now, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to have this beautiful, fully functional application with no data in it, because we haven't actually put any data in the system. So I'm going to show you how you can add rows, records in here manually, and then you can grab the spreadsheets out of the link that I've given you in the description so that you can upload some stuff and learn how to import data and also have a nicely populated app without having to do a whole lot of data entry. But go ahead and do whatever you like. So first thing I'm going to do, we're just going to pop Copilot off to the side for now because I want a bit more space for what I'm doing here, and we're going to bring that back a little bit later. So the first thing I can do here is let me show you how we create things. So let's talk around the app. We've demonstrated a little bit already. Search bar at the top. There's my navigation down the side. That's the view that I created. So plus new will bring up my form to do the data entry in it. So let's call this one, let's create something for, say, a sales manager. And this is where you can get a feel for the user interface that you built. The owner is me by default. You don't always necessarily need to show that stuff in there, but we've got that sitting there and that's, good to go. Department, sales. Reports to, this is a lookup. Now, depending on how your environment is set up, if it's a developer environment, you might not have anyone else in your environment. Other users are set up in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So if you've got a trial, if you've got like a Microsoft 365 trial environment, you can go into that portal and just add users in there and give them licenses. Honestly, though, just put yourself if you're just sort of working on your own and you don't have any other options in there. And we're going to choose that the role status is open. Good. Now, normally I would save and close, but I'm just going to click save to show you what happens, because remember I said the primary name comes up as the heading. So once it's saved, Now we've got that in there. So there's our sales manager. And then this one allows you to navigate back. And look at this. Now I've got some data in my app. A couple of other things here with your settings. So this is actually clearly I'm very dedicated. It's actually not 6:37 a.m. where I am. So we can come in here and click on personalization settings. And this is something that you can do from each user. So the data is all sort of stored in UTC format, but different users can see it in their own time zone. So you'll see it's in GMT, which is not where I am. I am in fact in the future in Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney. When I do this, I also usually prefer to switch away from English United States and choose English Australia. That will change my date and form time at. I'm just going to leave it as United States because most of you watching are from there, and so I'm going to leave it in your format with the month, day, year, even though many of the rest of us do it the other way around, so we're good. So now you'll see that's actually the real time and date that I'm recording this, which, I mean, it's 4:37 p.m. on a Saturday. That's much better than 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday, isn't it? All right, so let's have a look at the other two tables that are in here. Let's click on the contacts table next. Depending on what you've done, you might have a lot of contacts in here or not. Just go in and check active contacts. There's actually a bunch in there that sort of came with the sample data. So that's a sort of different view on the system that you can play around with some of those people in there, regardless of whether you've got that or not. Let's just play with the contact table. So this is the out of the box one that we didn't make any changes to. Let's put in a person here. So we'll call this person. So you see, this is mandatory actually. Let me show you what happens if I try to save and the mandatory field isn't filled. It actually won't let you do that. So you can set up your own data validation in there. Let's just give this a obviously fake email address and a business phone number that's also just obviously fake, and save that. And again, you could do save and close, but I want you to see what happens. It will put in the person's name, first name, last name as the sort of the header, the title. And now let's do an application so we can see the relationship between these things. So let's say we have a new application. Remember, the application number is going to be auto number, so we don't need to fill that in. But I'm going to look up and say that we've got an application from David for the role of the sales manager and save that. Now the timeline, see how it says almost there? You actually have to do that save in order to then be able to work with any other related records. So all of the things in the timeline here, we could come in and say, you know, I made a phone call to him on this date to sort of say, so that we call this one salary expectations or something. Perhaps we're doing some kind of initial screening call, and we can save that one in there. And that's going to show up in the timeline. So we'll see some other things come up in the timeline later. But those are all related records. One application can have many tasks, many phone calls, many notes. If you add things in here like a note, you'll actually get like a time and date stamp on the note. This is rich text as well. So this is a complete way of tracking everything that's going on. This whole thing is fully responsive, as I've mentioned a couple of times. If I boost it up another level, look at that, fits the timeline. If you sort of go ridiculous, it'll get to, you know, that point. If you are working on a massive monitor, you can bring it right down and fit a whole lot on the screen. I'm sort of working slightly bigger than normal here just so that it's a little bit easier to see on the screen. So we have now got some data in our system. We've created a role, we've created an application, we've created a contact. Let's go and test this business process flow. So we've got the screening, interview, offer. Let's do the screening. So let's say we did that screening call on Friday, and we're going to go to the next stage. We're going to schedule an interview for next Wednesday at 12 p.m. and watch what happens here if we say reference check required, the same thing we saw earlier. And this next stage moves it along. So you can start to do sort of visibility and pipeline reporting and things on this. This is one where we're going through a certain process. So the idea of this is that it allows the user to follow a certain path of steps and stages they should follow. But if you're a manager overseeing this process, it gives you visibility on where things are up to. You'll see it's also timing how long it's been at each stage, so you can get a sense of where you might be getting blocking things in the process as well. So it's designed to give you that guided consistency and reporting mechanism on what you're doing. Let's bring some more data into the app now. What I want to do, and it's important that you start from the table you're importing the data into. So what we're going to do is import roles, Then we're going to import contacts, and then we're going to import applications linked to roles and contacts, so you'll see how that works. So you need to start by being on the table that you want to import into, and then there's an option in the toolbar here. If you can't see it, the three dots, because I'm zoomed up a bit, I'm just going to zoom down so you can see there is import from Excel. It's there, but let's keep it sort of at this higher zoom so it's easier to see. So if you can't see it, we go here, we go import from Excel. Don't click on that just yet. There's another step. We want to go another layer and choose import from CSV. So make sure you've done that rather than clicking on import from Excel. Grab those files from the GitHub repo that is linked in there. We're going to say choose file and then upload that roles.csv from your documents there. And let's click on next. And then what this is going to do is go through a process of importing and mapping things. We don't want to allow duplicates. We can click on review mapping here. And this is now going to show us what's in that spreadsheet. Now I've made this nice and simple because I've used the same titles in the spreadsheet as what we've got in the database here. So let's just take a look at the spreadsheet. You'll see that I've got name, department, role status. I've used exactly the same column headings in my spreadsheet as I've used in the column table names in the app. That's going to make it easier. If you haven't done that, it's not the end of the world. It just means you won't get this automatic mapping. So then you come along here and choose what goes where and do that mapping for you. So we've got name. The things that are these, you'll see this is a mandatory field. I have to have that one. Optional field. So these are the things that are the option set or choices. If I click on that little sort of set of choices icon, you'll see that it's mapping them all across. And once again, if you typed those values when we set up the departments exactly as I did, you'll have a nice easy experience here. If you didn't, just choose the right ones and click OK. Same with the role status, that should be fine, and just click OK there. If in the real world you wanted to be importing this kind of stuff on the regular, you can actually give it a name and save it and use it over again. Finish import. Now this is an optional step that you can click. Track progress. I'm going to do this here because I think it is actually useful to see what's going on. This will help you to see the import working in the background and going through the processes and see whether you've got any successes or failures coming through. Everything else has gone at a speed that I've been able to talk to, and this is going to go slow, and I did promise you we would do this one in real time, so we'll have a little chat. This is my Copilot drink bottle. It's bright and fabulous and I love it. How are we doing? Are you enjoying building a model-driven app? I hope you are. I hope this is starting to make sense and come through for you. I feel like maybe the this one isn't going to load. Let's just try that and click done. We'll do it for the next one. Let's give this a refresh and see if it's actually worked, because those roles should have come through by now. There we go. It has actually worked. You don't have to do the tracking. We'll do the tracking next time. So there we go. We've got all of those things in there. I imported 50 and there's one row left. I am showing you some things that can go slightly awry in real life. Let's do the contacts now and see if we have better luck visualizing it. So click on the table that I want to work with. We are going to come in here, import from Excel, extra button there, import from CSV, choose our file. Let's grab the contacts CSV, click next, and review the mapping again. And this one is going to have, so we've got last name to last name, business phone, email, first name, all nice and clear. Finish import. Let's see if we can track progress this time and click OK. Please work. I'm going to have to be patient. Maybe I will do a little bit of an edit here or not. Let's see how we go. All right, that doesn't seem to want to come up for some reason, so let me just show you what it looks like. This is not something you have to do, but it's interesting to see. So what we've got here is my imports, and you'll see the ones I've done sort of in my other previous system. This is the one that I've just started, so we've got total process 000. If I give this a refresh, you'll see, there we go, we've got 50 being processed. You probably shouldn't just sit and click and hit the refresh button over and over again. It doesn't make it go any faster. So, but it changes status here. So we've gone from preparing to importing, and now it's completed with 50 successes. You'll see we've got some other things in here where I've done this in the past with errors. So this is your import log. Don't know why it's not working here, but it actually doesn't matter. We don't need to click through to that every time. It is in fact working if I just refresh the app. So we've now done an import of roles and an import of contacts. Let's now do the final step, and this is the most fun one, where we're going to import applications because we're going to connect them. So if you want to do any kind of import where you are actually bringing in related tables, make sure you've got those other ones in there first, and then bring in the one that needs to be related to the ones that are already in there. So again, click on the table you're importing to, import from Excel, import from CSV, choose the file. We're going to choose the applications CSV. Now let me bring this one up for you in Excel so that we can see what it's doing, because this is the sort of concept that I want you to get around here. So what we've got is the role, and the role name is going to be an exact match to something that's already in there. Now, it's risky doing this with free text, but I've got nice clean data. In a real world scenario, you probably want to get some sort of ID. The candidate, however, I haven't got the person's name. I've actually just got their email. That's important. So I've got my applications. Let's click next, review the mapping. And this one now has got candidate is a candidate lookup. We're coming back there. The interview outcome. So this has got these pieces that we saw before where successful, unsuccessful, and I've got some blanks in there because we don't have all of the results coming through on this yet. So that just won't map to anything. That's okay. Offer made, yes, no, or blank. That's okay as well. The role is actually a lookup to the role name. And so what it does, remember we talked about the primary name before and how important that was. When you're doing that lookup, it wants to match against the primary name. For my roles, that's fine because I put those names in there that are unique. But remember with the candidate, I use the email address, not the person's name. So this is something you can do if you've got something that's more of a unique identifier. First name, last name, not likely to be a unique identifier. Let's cross that one out. And then let's start typing email, find the email, and then we're good. We'll click OK. So what I've done now is I've got an import that is going to map the role to the primary name, the name of the role, and map the candidate to the email address on the candidate. So if you're doing this kind of thing, I'm not even going to try and track progress this time. We'll just click done and wait for it to come through. So if you're doing something like this where you want to be mapping and importing those things, just make sure that you've got something that's unique, that it can make that relationship with the related table in the data that you're importing, and then point it to that column. It doesn't have to be the primary name column, even though that's what it will do by default. And then we'll give this a second. It usually takes a minute or so. We'll see all of those applications come through. And I will check where we're going to go next while we're waiting for that to happen. Never goes back. All right, let's, come on. Impatient. There we go. So it's in progress now because that's 7 and I think I had more than 7. So there's 22 and I think that's about all I had. So there you go. So there's our view that has the application number, the candidate, the interview start time sorted by most recent, like oldest to latest. So you'll see we've got some of those in there. It's coming up with these ones are blank. So that's also drawing my attention to things there that might need those things in there. Is there an offer made? We might want to bring the role name in there as well so we can play around with that. In fact, let's do that. So if you notice something in your app that you've missed, so I've clearly missed in here in my applications, I want to see which role it is in this view. So let's go back into the solution. We'll go back into my application, view, active applications. We have got in here the role. So if I just grab role, let's drag and drop this one and I can put it where I want it to be. So I now want the application number and the role. Let's kind of drag and drop that a little bit to make it fit. Save and publish. I don't have to go back and change the app or do anything else. You can do something like that if you want to put it into the app and make a change. So any of those forms or views you want to make a change, you can just do that. We'll come back in here, give it a refresh at the browser level if you want to pick up those changes. It can take a minute or so or not. See, some things are with me in the speed. And now I've got that in there. So it's actually quite easy if you are working on this and you start to visualize it on the screen and you miss something or you add something later to go back and change that. You can also play around with the views. So just because we've got this done by interview start time, you can actually sort that the other way around. We can do this kind of filter by, let's only filter by the ones that were successful and apply that, or sort from older to newer again, remove the filter, and then the individual user can actually do things themselves. So let's come back into the roles view, for instance. We gave them the active roles and also the open roles, but let's say I wanted something different here as a user. I can come in and say I want to edit the columns. I actually don't want to see the reports to or the created on. I can remove those things, or I could add something else in there. So let's say I wanted to, I didn't really give myself much else to work with here. Let's say I wanted to put in created by or something like that and click apply. Then this is now going to give me that view that I want. And then I can come in here and say I want to save that as a new view. Obviously, as a user, if I've got permission to do that. So people can actually do that sort of things themselves, those sort of things themselves, with the sorting and filtering and creating new views, which is a very Excel-like way of doing things. Incidentally, also export to Excel is an option, single click, and that will download a spreadsheet. Let's take another look at our Copilot now that we've got more to work with in here. So Copilot can do things where it helps you find information in the app. You can search for things in natural language. It's actually also very good at being able to sort of add up things or find things for you. So we might want to say, I think I said before something like how many roles do we have, but let's try something like this. How many roles do we have in the sales department? Because this is not something that's sort of not easily visible on the view, and this will come in and find those things. Have a bit of a play around with some questions here that you can think of. How many roles are filled? Which department has the most roles? This is fast evolving stuff, so you'll sometimes find that you'll get answers sometimes that won't be quite the expected results, but this is a really, really cool use of AI that allows you to do this natural language searching and finding information on all of those things that we put into the Dataverse index as we were setting up. We put in those search columns, those things are there, and the Copilot is aware of those things. This is a really cool space to watch. Early days, but make sure you have a play around with this. So where we're at now, honestly, is your core application. You're good to go. You've got all the pieces, but let's step it up a couple of levels with some of the sort of more intermediate things you can do to just really bring out more value from the app, especially where you're working with these relational tables and databases to give you more visibility of things. So I'm going to go back into my solution and navigate back up here. And the first thing we're going to do is to create what's called a quick create form, which makes it easy for the user to do. Let's have a look at what a quick create form looks like. Something like this. So from inside the app, you could say, I just want to create an application, and then that will just pop up with an experience on the side here. So rather than sort of having to navigate around, we can just come in here and say, quick create application, and then it will give us that data entry experience where I can say, let's look up a role, put that in, let's look up the candidate, and just do that in there. So we will discard the changes there. We'll go back into the maker experience and make one of those. So on application, what I want to do here is to choose a new form, and this is called a quick create form. When we first set up the table, we said leverage quick create form if available. That means I can do this. If you didn't do that, then it means that you've missed that step and it will be grayed out. So go back and do that. So what we've got here, quick create application, this is like a miniature version of the form. So I can click on this first section here and we can bring in the columns we want. So let's say I want the role, the candidate, the interview start time, and then I can click on this whole first section here. Let's click on the section and hide the label because new section isn't very useful to me and I don't need one there. You actually can't get rid of these sections on here. You just want to hide them if you don't want other sections on your quick create form. Just get rid of them in there, and then you can save and publish that form. So that's an experience that will allow you to just do that sort of quick and easy data entry for any table. If you want to go ahead and do that on some of the other tables to get some extra practice, pause the video and come back when you've done that. So the next thing we're going to do here is create a quick view form. This is the most confusing terminology that we've got in here, but this is something that allows you to see what's going on with, let's cancel out of that, where I go into my application and I have, for instance, this one here. and I've got my candidate with that lookup, but this is actually going to show those details from that related table. So from here I can see things. This is read only, but I've got that information on the screen. So that's called a quick view form as opposed to a quick create form, which is what we did here. So in order to do that, I want a quick view form for the contact because we're bringing in pieces for the contact. So you start with the thing you're trying to display. So we'll go back to the tables, click on contact here. And what I want to do is go new form, quick view form. It's because it's got a view and form in the one place that it's confusing. So again, this is the same concept now as creating a view, as creating a form. So what we want to do, again, we can have sections in here if you don't want the label on that. Let's just get rid of that. And we want to bring in, so this is a lot of, like this is the contact table out of the box. There's a lot going on here. So it's probably easier just to start typing. So you want to find the first name column, and you want to find the last name. So you'll see I can just sort of type them in here to make it easier to find them and just click on what I want. And let's say there are some other things that we want to see here that we are bringing across. Actually, I think I wanted the business phone in there. Let's get rid of that. So if you do something you don't want, just click on delete, and that's probably enough in there. So we can save and publish that one. And now we've got that. So that's the first part of it. So the first thing you need to do is create that quick view form on the table that's going to be displayed. And then we need to put it on the application table connected to that lookup so that it knows where it's going. So once that's saved and published, we will go back in the navigation, back to our tables in the breadcrumb trail here, and into the application table, the application form, and you'll see the quick create form we created there is already there. So we want to go into the main form, and then that middle column on the form, which is where we put the candidate, we're going to bring that component in. So I'm going to click on that section, and then we come across here. Actually, sorry, what I want to do, make it a bit easier, let's click on the lookup. It's a bit of a shortcut here. Come into the components, and what we want is a display component. And there are lots of components here, like many more things than I can show you in what we're doing with this course, but click around, have a look at what else is there. We're going to bring in a quick view. So if I click on that, you'll see that because I've already selected candidate, it already knows that's the lookup. And then which one do I want? I'm just working with the contact quick view form, which is the one that I just created, I think. Let's do that. You can have different versions of this to use in your application in different places. So there it is, first name, last name, business phone. That comes up with exactly what I wanted it to be. Save and publish, and that's now going to come up on my application. There is one other little sort of clever trick that's worth knowing about, which is working with a lookup view. So if I come back into my application here, and if I'm coming in and having a look at this role, let's sort of get rid of this. If I do this lookup, what happens is in here, by default, you will actually get, if you start to sort of try to type something, you'll get the name of the role. You'll see I've got the department there. I've configured that. Otherwise, what you'll get is the primary name and the created on date, which honestly isn't always the most useful thing. So if you want to choose what shows up here, and you can have sort of three things. You have the primary name and two other things that can make it a whole lot easier to work with. That's on the role. I'll go back to the tables and into the role here, and that is a view, and that is called the lookup view. So if we go into the lookup view, when you create the table, all of these views are just done for you. Like we didn't have to create all of those things, but you can come in and change it. So you'll see by default, you've got the name and created on. I don't want created on, but I want the department and maybe the reports too. So you can have up to 3 in there. If you put more in there, you just won't see them, but that will give you a much nicer experience with the lookup. So we will save and publish that one as well. Now, the other thing I really want to show you, this is a really cool component, is the idea of what's called a subgrid. This allows you to see in that relationship where you've got one to many, all of the related records. So if I come back here into my roles, and you might have noticed in my app, my demo app here, that there's some color going on that you haven't seen in your app. We are going to come to that shortly. So if I click on the account manager role, see how we've got, here's the account manager and here are the related applications. This piece here is called a subgrid. This is allowing you to see the related records. And this is a really cool thing that just the benefit of having that database relationship set up that you really want to take advantage of. So this one is going to be on my role. I want to add a subgrid showing applications. So in my role form, the main form, we're going to open that one up again, and I'm going to add another section to bring that in. Now I'm just going to use the active applications view, but you could configure a special view with particular columns you want to see there. So all the skills you've learnt so far, you could just go save as and create another view and do that if you want. So I'm just going to keep it nice and simple here. What we're going to do is come in here into the components menu, or you can click on components there. I want a one column section. So this is a section. I'm going to add another one column section, and that will come into the form here. We will call this one applications. And then clicking in here, we're going to come over to the side, and this is a grid. This is a subgrid. An editable subgrid will allow you to kind of make changes in line if that's something you want to do, but this is just a display element. You have to say show related records. Honestly, I don't know why you wouldn't want to show related records, but make sure you check that. You'll have a much easier experience. So we want to see the related records, and this is giving me the options of what's related to roles. So there's a bunch of sort of system things in here, but applications is actually what I wanted. And then there's my active applications view. If you've created another view for this, you can do that as well. And we will click done. That will come up. Now the subgrid itself kind of has its own name, this new SG control, blah, blah, blah. No one ever wants that. You could have like another little subheading there, or you can just hide that if you prefer the heading to be in the section. Up to you. Save and publish. How's our app looking now? We've got a few other things going on that are starting to bring it a little bit more to life and do some fancy things. So that's quick view forms, quick create forms, lookup views, and subgrids. So those are all kind of like next level things that are just going to really make your app absolutely shine. Let's go back now. Did I save and publish? I think I saved and published. We'll come back into the app. Let's give it a refresh and check out these experiences. Let's have a look in particular at the roles and the applications to get those things working. The piece here where you can do that quick create, that's come up nice and fast. I have actually seen that sometimes just takes a few minutes, but there we go. I could quick create an application, and now if I look up the role, that part hasn't come through yet with the with my lookup view. Maybe I didn't publish that one. So you can come in here and say, here's my account manager. Look at that. Now I've got all of my applications sitting in there, and I can go in and have a look at an application, and there we go. There's the information about the person that's sitting in there. So those things make a huge difference, those four sort of components, to really make your app much more useful, because you can see all of the related information about what's going on without so many clicks. But you want the color, don't you? We want to get these colorful things in here. So let's go and bring that in as well. So we're going to come in back into the solution. We'll go back into here. And we need to bring in what's called the Power Apps Grid Control. So this is going to be, we first want it on the successful and unsuccessful on the applications, and I also want it on the roles. So this is done at a table level. So we're going to come into the role. The way you get to it is to go into a view and just pick the active roles view. It doesn't really matter. You just sort of pick one of the views. And then you've got this option up here called components. Add a component. And you want to choose Power Apps Grid Control, but it's not there. So you can actually get more components, and there's a whole bunch of other things that are just not there. So scroll down and find the Power Apps Grid Control and add that in. You'll find that's in there for other things you want to do now. Let's click on that. And so now there's a lot of options in here of ways that you can configure and change that grid that you might like to play around with. But mostly now what we want to do is to say, so this one is This is on the roll. And remember back in my demo app here, I had that experience on the roll where we could do this sort of opening it up. That's not a good example here. Opening it up and seeing the related applications. So that's what this part is doing here, is I want to say, when I click away, it gets a bit upset with me. Let's discard this and do this again. Add the Power Apps grid control. So the child items, what I want to do is to say, I want to see the related applications. Clicked away too fast then. Come back. Applications. Which view do I want to see? Again, if I've got something different. And then what is the parent ID back the other way? So related back to applications, the lookup column was called role. From the application, we look up to the role. Go down. There's a bunch of other things here that you can do with filtering, sorting, grouping, aggregation that you can have a play around with you want. But what we want here is enable options set colors. Yes, we definitely want the colors. Let's click done on that, save on that, and save and publish on that. And let's see what happens now. Back to my app, refresh it at the browser level. And look at that. Now I've got my status coming up in a nice colourful situation. I can open Account Manager and those colours are there too. So this is back to those colours that we chose at the start. I hope you took the advice to use nice pastel colours that make it clear. So that's what you can do with that and have a play around with some of those options there. Now, if you really want to level up your app and you want to start getting into some custom design, maybe you've got Canvas app skills or you want to start bringing specific pixels and images and things onto the screen, you can do that with what's called a custom page. I'm going to take you through how to build this one here. This is a fairly straightforward example because I'm assuming that not everyone is coming to this with the skills of building Canvas apps, but if you have those skills, you're going to be able to do great things here. So this is essentially something where we've got a label on the screen. I can make that whatever size I want. I've sort of done a bit of an oversized font just to sort of prove a point here. This is actually a list. This is actually one of the same things that's in the app. So I can click through to here and that will navigate me through into that role. So we've got some functional navigation happening there. We've also got the image on there, and in the GitHub repo that's linked below, I've put some images in there if you would like to use any of those, as well as these pieces here that are buttons that allow you to navigate around the app. So we're going to go back into the solution again, as we always do. Let's go to all here. Now, this is a really important thing if you are a Canvas apps person, and even if you're not, just to understand the concept that Power Apps allows you to create different kinds of apps. What we're building here is a model-driven app. A Canvas app is a standalone app connected to any data source where you can drag and drop everything on the screen. What we're building here is something that kind of sits in between. It's actually called a custom page. So we start with new app page. Don't click Canvas app here. That's a different standalone piece. There are options for bringing those things in here, but if you want this sort of easy integrated experience of bringing it in, you need to start with a custom page. The custom page doesn't have as much functionality at the moment as a full Canvas app, so depending on what you're doing, you might want to choose one or the other. Too much for this course. I just really want to show you how you can build a basic custom page, and then please go ahead and make beautiful designs, make more beautiful things than the one I'm showing you here, and then share it with me, share it on social or wherever you want to do, because honestly, the beauty of the Canvas app design, not the reason you're going to ever watch me. There are people better at this than I am. So what we do here, we're going to start with a template. Let's sort of scroll this up a little bit. I'm going to start with layout, and then you've got a bunch of cool layouts and responsive layouts and things we can use here. I'm going to use this one that's actually just a really super simple one called tutorial that gives me a starting point of a template that has a blank on one side and an image on the other because, you know, why not? But I'm going to get rid of a whole lot of stuff because I'm actually not building out a tutorial. But if you did want to build a tutorial as a custom page, this is how you could do it. I am actually going to come in here, and on the screen here, the only things I want to have left are the rectangle text and the tutorial image. So all of these other things, I'm just going to click on these things and make a bit of a mess by clicking the delete key and getting rid of all of them. And now I've just got tutorial image and rectangle box left. Of course, an error because I've deleted a dependency of some kind, but don't worry about that. We're going to say edit in the formula bar and just delete that formula. And look at that. Now I've got basically a nice template that I want to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring an image in here. So we go over to the navigation here into the section that says media. I want to add media and upload something. So grab an image from the files. This is the one that I'm going to use, which is sort of nice little welcome. I'm building this page out that looks like it's all very Power Apps themed, but if you want to add more color, there's some other choices in there as well. I've added my image, and now what I need to do, the Canvas Apps piece or the custom pages piece here is quite different from what we've been doing, where you've got many more properties and controls to work with. So I am selected here on, if I pop this out a little bit, actually we want to see the tree view. I'm selected on tutorial image, that's what I've got here, and then there's a bunch of properties about what this image can do, and there's so much you can get into here. What I want to do though, the formula for the image just needs to be the name of the image I just uploaded, which was called welcome something. So if I just start typing it, welcome Power Apps color, there it is. All right. So far, so good. So now what we want to do is deal with this pale blue background, because that's not a good situation. Even with my poor design eye, I can see that. So let's click on that component. So always click on the component and then work with the formula. So what we've got here is properties. So you can see there's a color property there that has a formula. If I click on that, it'll pop up in here. And this is showing you that it's a color fade against that color. I am going to give you the RGBA for the Power Apps color that I'm working with here. Let me just copy paste this across. We'll put it on the screen. You can choose whatever you like, but that's the formula you're going to need if you want to have this exact color. The 30% here is the fade rate. If I make that higher, the thing will fade down more. If I make it less, it will fade up. It'll be darker. So you choose whatever you like there, or pick a different color if you want it to be something different. So now we've got our image and our background color. We will add a greeting for the user. So we're going to work in this section now. I am going to come back to this little icon here, which is my insert menu that allows me to insert different components. And I want to insert a label. So this label can have a formula in it, or it can just have a name in it. So I have this one that is a welcome formula that brings in the name of the user. It knows who I am as the logged in user. So the text of this formula, you can just have a word with quotes around it. I'll show you one of those in a moment, or we can get rid of that and put a formula in here. So again, I'll leave this on the screen so you can copy it. Welcome, space, user full name, and you can see it's got that in there. And now I can muck around with my font size, with my any of these other things I want. So let's sort of bring this out a little bit more, and there we go. It's welcoming me to my app. Let's grab another label in here. You'll see it just puts it over the same spot. This one is going to be a heading for the open roles. So this one, we're just going to put text in here. We don't need a formula. You can change it here or up in the formula bar there. I am going to just put in open roles, and that's nice. Let's make that one a little bit bigger, maybe make that 15. And again, you can, this is where we're pixel perfect now. I can drag this wherever I want on the screen and put it exactly where I want. I could also make this one, you know, bold or whatever I like to sort of bring it out. So just play around with some of the formatting there as you like it. I am now going to add a gallery, which is that vertical list of the roles that we saw in there. So back over on this part of the screen, let's grab a vertical gallery, and you'll see it just kind of plonks it in a weird spot, but that's okay. And I'm going to search for my roles table in Microsoft Dataverse. You'll see this is where I could actually bring in data from other data sources to display that in my model-driven app. So you might want to have like a news feed, or I don't know, something from another system that you can bring in there. So that's an option as well. I'm going to just choose this one for now, and then let's grab this, and while it's bringing the right data in, move it around and sort of move the layout so that it fits. I'm going to put a couple of buttons underneath the gallery, so let's bring that up a little bit there. It's not ready for that yet. So it's still loading. I'm trying to do too many things too quickly at once. We'll give it a second to come up. There we go. Please wait. Please wait. I get a bit impatient. All right. So now we've got our data in there. You can, sort of scroll this so that it fits quite nicely, but you'll see it's bringing in roles with the name and the created on date, which I don't really want. So over here, we can choose something different. So I'm actually going to say I can choose my view. Because I've got this as a custom page and directly connected to that Dataverse table, these are the roles that I chose before. And remember, we created an open roles view. So that's now going to apply that filter that I made earlier. And then I can also come in here and choose something different. So instead of having those things there, let's change as a starting point the layout. Instead of image, title, subtitle, because there's no images with this, I just want title and subtitle. So that's going to clean it up a little bit. And then I can come in here and say, what fields do I want? So this item name as the starting point is fine, but I don't really want created on. I want department. Look at that. That's looking a whole lot better. So now what I can do is change the color of some of these things. So if I come in and click this little icon, now I can format what's in there. And if I click on that heading, you can come in here and change the color of that font. Choose whatever you like, custom, but if you want to play along at home with the same color, that's the hex code that's in there. And see how it's changed. So now we've got that all lined up. And then the other thing I want to do is bring in a little sort of navigation arrow to encourage people to see that they can click through. So again, if I click on my gallery, click on the pencil icon, that goes in. You're basically just doing, it looks like you're editing the first row, but it actually flows all the way through. We saw that with the color change. What I want to do now is bring in an icon. So there's a bunch of icons in here. So let's scroll down and find the one that is called Right. And it'll just pop it in a weird color in a weird location. Don't worry about that. Drag and drop that to where you want it to be, and they'll all follow along. If you want to make it a little bit smaller, we can do that, or a little bit bigger. You can sort of fiddle around with, there we go, that'll do. And then what we can do is also give that another color. So I'll give you another sort of hex color code in my color scheme here. You'll see that's blue at the moment. We'll go in here and put that one in, and we're getting a nice pink color. Is it all too pink? I don't know. I quite like making it look like it fits the theme, but you know, you do you. So then what we can do is say what I want is for when somebody chooses that icon. So again, let's go back into the gallery and click on that. That should navigate them to that record. Remember, that was a navigation piece that we're allowed to do in there. So on select is what happens when they click on that, and we actually want to change this formula here. So let's get rid of that formula. And there's, again, when we looked at PowerFX formulas before, this is a whole other world of learning and language, but you can follow along with what I'm doing here. When it's selected, I want to navigate, and what I want to navigate to is the item that's been selected in the gallery. So if I come back here into my tree view, you'll see these are the names of the things. This thing's just called Gallery 1. You can actually give it a more sensible name than that if you like, but I'm being a bit lazy here. So what we want to do is to say navigate to Gallery 1, and it's highlighted it, and I want to navigate to the selected item in that gallery and close the parentheses there. So now I've got a formula where that's going to create that navigation experience. I'm going to put a couple of buttons here at the bottom to be able to sort of navigate to the different tables in the system. So to do that, let's make sure I'm sort of clicked out of the gallery now. I can come back into my insert menu, or you can use insert from the top here, and I want to insert a button. Again, kind of in the wrong spot. I'm going to drag that down. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And then I want this button to be the applications. So we can come in here and just change the text. So we'll go applications, and I would like that to be a different color and a different font. So let's make that a bit of a bigger font size to make it a little bit easier to see. Let's grab that same hex color that we were using before. So we can come in here, and I want to actually change the fill color. So the colors here, that is the text color, and that is the fill color of the button. You'll notice you can also change the hover and the pressed color. I'll just do this one for now. So let's come in and put that one in. So we've got another nice pink button in there. And what I want to happen is when this one is clicked on, it will navigate to the applications table. Actually, one more thing, border radius, make that 10. That gives it slightly sort of rounded corners, which is quite nice. When we click on this button, I want it to navigate to the applications table. So the way we do that with the buttons selected is to come in here, and the properties. So this is just all these different properties, all these things you can do. We actually want to choose the on select property. On select of that button, what should we do? This is navigate again. It's one of the most useful things you can learn in this part of it. We want to navigate. Where do we want to navigate? We actually want to navigate to the name of the table. Now again, because I've created it as a custom page and not a standalone Canvas app, it's ready to rock and roll with that thing without any effort at all. So I'm going to just type in applications and it should find... I've missed a step. My bad. All right, let's get rid of that. We need to add the tables in there first. So let's come back into the section over here called data. At the moment, my app only knows about roles. We need to add a couple more things. So we need to add in the applications table. And I'm also going to add another button for the interviews, which we haven't done yet, but this is just appointments. We're just going to use out of the box appointments because that's in the platform, so why not? So we'll wait for that one to come up, and then we can probably add it while we're waiting. I'm also going to add appointments from Microsoft Dataverse as well. So we'll wait for those things to come through, and then we'll have more success with the navigation on the button because it knows about that table, and when I'm looking for a formula, it will be able to do it. So on select now for our button, we're going to say navigate, open the bracket, applications. There we go. That's a whole lot better. And close the bracket. Lovely. Let's duplicate that button so we can do another one. So instead of having to do all that again, I can just right click on that, copy, right click again and paste and move that along a little bit. Change the name of this one to interviews. We're going to change the on select property of this one to go to the right table. So we'll come back here and say on select. We're going to navigate to, now the interviews, we're actually using appointments. We've just given it a different name, but that's where we want it to go. And do I have another color for you? Do I what? Of course I do. Let's grab another one here and choose this custom, put that one in there. And we are on theme. So now, that's it. It's a nice, simple sort of opening page. Play around with this. If you've got the Canvas app skills, do some fancier things, but that should give you a sense of the kinds of things you can do here, which is enough for now. Let's click on save. We give this one a name. We're going to call this welcome page and save it. And then we just need to wait till that's finished. We're a bit patient, Lisa. And then we need to publish it. So as you're going through this, you'll see we're going to bring this into our model-driven app. So there's sort of a couple of steps to this. We publish the page, and then you need to bring it into the model-driven app and publish the app. So if you do want to come back and make changes to this later, you're going to need to navigate back through the main menu into the pages and make the changes and publish and then republish. So you just need to be aware of that sort of publishing cycle, if you like, of those things. And then the last thing we need to do is bring it into the model-driven app. So we'll navigate over here into apps, open the recruitment app, and we just need to bring that page in. So what we did earlier when we built the app was bringing in pages that were actually Dataverse tables. Now we're bringing in an actual page. So we click on new here. We are going to choose custom page and click next. Use an existing custom page. Notice you can actually create one from here if you prefer. We're going to choose that welcome page and make sure we show it in the navigation and click add. And from there, we want to push it up the navigation. So we will click here and move up, move up, move up to get it up to the top. And now all we need to do is save, publish, and play. So there's always these two layers of saving and publishing when you're working with a custom page. You need to save and publish it in that canvas where you were working, bring it in here, save and publish it. If you do need to make changes, you do need to go through that again. So you will need to make the changes to the custom page, publish them there, bring them in here. Actually, the page would already be in here and you'd need to publish it again. So we've done our first stage there, save, publish. Are we excited about how this is going to look? If you get any error messages that come up in this process that says, warning, sometimes it comes up on the screen with a big warning, your app needs to be republished. That's just all the things I was talking about that will go away once you've done this process and you're good to go. Give it another second here and then we should be able to play it, and we are nearly done. We're also going to talk about security rules before we finish because that's a really important part of what we can do with model-driven apps as well. Don't forget, if you've come this far, give me a comment. I know a lot of people will watch the whole thing all the way through, but give us a bit of a shout out if you've come right through to the custom pages end of things, especially if you've done it all in one sitting. Well done. I've had a couple of breaks in recording it. We will click play and see what we have got now in our wonderful, beautiful custom page. So now I've got all of these buttons here that I can navigate around to my applications page, and I can go back and scroll through all of those things. I can jump straight into the account manager. So this can serve as a really good overview, navigation, welcome tutorial. There's heaps of things you can do with this. So the last thing I need to show you, really important thing, is around security roles and how you're going to share this app. So we go back into the Power Platform Admin Center. The core part of sharing an app and making it available with model-driven apps, right back where we started, is around the Dataverse tables, the security model, who has access to what. So this isn't just about sharing an app. This is actually about giving people role access to what they can do, what they can read, write, edit, delete in the app. So this is really important. aka.ms/PPAC, right back to where we started. If we go into environments, choose the environment that you've been working with. Let's just zoom the screen up a bit so it's a bit easier to see. We're going to go into settings, and this time we're not just doing all the feature switches we did earlier. We are actually going in here to users and permissions, security roles. Now, out of the box, this comes with a stack of different security roles, but when you have made custom tables, you want to be able to assign the right security roles to those things. So there are out of the box security roles in here that you can work with. One of the things that's good to do is to take one of those and duplicate it and use that as something that you can do for your app. We will give different users different roles. So for this recruitment app, for instance, you might have a user, a manager user who can perhaps create a role or edit a role, but maybe only someone with a human resources role could do the application process. So you can set up all of those kinds of things to control exactly who can do what. So these are the ones we've got out of the box. Let's take a look at this one here called Basic User. This is the basic security role. You actually can't customize this one, but you'll see the privileges here about being able to create, read, write, and do all sorts of things, not just with the tables, but all of the other kinds of functions that go with the app. Let's make a copy of this security role. So we'll call this one Recruitment Basic Role. And this might be the baseline level of the role that we give to people to be able to access tables. But then you want to build out other security roles if you want to make that more complex. Just be careful that when you're assigning people multiple roles that it changes the privilege they've got. There's a whole world of complexity here. I want to at least get you across the basics of setting up a security role and sharing it with the users. But what we're going to do here, once this recruitment basic role comes up, is go in and put in those custom tables that we've created to make sure someone has access to them, because that's core to how we actually go about sharing the role. So now we are still stuck in the basic user role. Let's navigate back to security roles. Find the one we just created here, which is the recruitment basic role. And now what we want to do is have a look in here at the different permissions. So I don't need to change anything about the business management. The business process flows we've got in here. The core records, so those are the various sort of core tables. So for instance, contact, you might want to say who can change things in here. So user privilege means just the individual user, my records that I own. So remember, whenever we're looking in the tables in the database, it's like owner, Lisa Crosby. That means I could create, read, write, delete. Write is edit. Append and append to is things like where we've got related records and can we add related records, assign or share with other users. So this gets quite comprehensive here. So for instance, I might say that I can create things, but I want to be able to allow this role to see everything, all of the contacts in the organization. They should be able to see them, but they should only be allowed to edit the ones they've created, or maybe they can only edit the ones in their own business unit. So you've got this hierarchical security model that's around saying you've got individual users and users belong to business units, and then there's a parent-child hierarchy that goes on there, and that sets all of these permissions. So the delete permission could be none. You're not allowed to delete anything. And then once you've got that duplicate role set up, what you want to do is go in and make sure you've given permissions to the tables and the business process flows that you created. So you can come in here and type application to find that application table, come through there and then set those create, read, write, delete permissions the same as we did before. Perhaps you want them all to be at the organization level or whatever things you want to do, and repeat the same thing for the business process flow and the roles. Once you're done with that, you click on Save and Close, and then the next step is to assign those security roles to the users. So we're going to come back in here into the users and permissions and select users, and this is where we add those security roles, and this is what's going to give them access to the app. So we come in here. From each user, you choose Manage Security Roles, and this will give you the roles that are available. So if I come down here, I should be able to find my recruitment basic role. Maybe we don't want system administrator or whatever it is. You can see you can add in any combination of all of these things. System admin will basically give the person access to everything in the system. So if this was a basic user, you'd just give them that role, and that will give them access to the things that we have just provided. And you go through and do that for the rest of your users. Now, if your demo environment, your trial environment doesn't have other users in there, again, just sort of click on your own user that you've set up for yourself, and you should be able to at least click through and go through and understand what has to happen. There's one final step then, which is that we need to put that security role back into the solution and associate it with the app. So we're going to come back into our solution here. We go to the top level here, and we're going to add an existing security role. Find that security role. So that one was called recruitment, I think. Yes, recruitment basic role. Add that one in. And so that's also part of the whole solution. When we bring this across to different environments, we want that to be part of it. And so then the one final part now is to share this app with the people who have that security role. So we're going to go back into our apps, check the three dots here and click share. And now what we can do is choose to share to the apps. Now I'm in a developer environment, it has sharing permissions. You obviously won't get that in a real scenario, but we're going to say the recruitment app, and then we manage which security roles the app will use. So the whole process here is you're setting up a security role. The role has permissions for all the tables and functions. You give that security role to a person, and then you also say that security role applies to this app, and then that combination of things sets up all the access. It's all very comprehensive in how these things come together. So we can come down here now and choose another role. I wish this one was in alphabetical order. It always takes me a bit to find it. There we go. Recruitment basic role, and I can click share. And then that will mean now that anyone who has that role will get that. As a final stage, then you really want to give them the URL for the actual app itself. So you can just come in here and grab that and copy paste and send that through to someone. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much if you've got this far. Like, share, subscribe, all of those things, and have a look at the other videos here that can take you another level further in things that you can do to help your understanding of model-driven apps. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support.